All right. So your name is
John
John.
Van Raalte,
Okay.
Vanraalte.
And when the war broke out, where were you living?
When the war broke out in December 7th, 1941, I lived in Chesterfield, Missouri, which was where I was raised. We had a big farm and horses outside of St. Louis. It's about 30 miles out of St. Louis.
Okay.
And I was in school. I went to St. Louis Country Day School.
Is that a high school?
It's all the way through. It's a country day. It starts in fifth grade and goes through high school. It's a private school.
Okay. And
And then I went to college. I went to Dartmouth College in June of 1944. And I completed my first year going through the summer and the fall semester. And then I enlisted when I was 17 in the Navy. And I went to Great Lakes Naval Training Center, which was up outside of Chicago, Great Lakes.
Right.
And I was there through my naval training and then boot camp basically. And then I went to the electronics school to learn how to be a radar operator, which was in Chicago. And then they shipped me to Pearl Harbor to be a radar operator, and the war was over.
Oh, okay.
And when I was at Pearl Harbor, that was in August 1945. I enlisted, I had said, in December 1944 after I had finished my 2 semesters in college. And then I was assigned to the Philippine Islands, Cavite Naval Base. And our unit that I was assigned to, they converted me to an electrician to maintain the landing craft. Actually, our unit was the one that was supposed to invade Japan in November, but the war was over. And so we just were keeping the boats running until they could sell them or decommission them. And I was there from August 1945 until the spring of 1946. They let out the people who had been in the service longer than I had out first. And so I didn't get out until the spring, and then I went back to college in the fall of 1946.
So were you happy that when you heard that President
When the atomic bombs, I was delighted. When they bombed Nagasaki and Hiroshima and Nagasaki, it's probably saved my life because of the fact that my unit, the amphib unit I was attached to, which I was in charge of keeping the boats running, the electrical systems, would have been the first wave into Japan because I had joined a unit of amphibian unit. All of the ones I had joined had come up through New Guinea and through the islands, and they were very experienced in the landings and the invasions. So I was very delighted that they dropped the bombs because, as I said, I think it would have saved an awful lot of American lives. If they'd have invaded Japan, the Japanese would have fought tooth and nail for a long time. As a matter of fact, the emperor, as you might know, never surrendered. The only reason they surrendered is because the Russians came in a couple of weeks before, and before August, and the Japanese were afraid of the Russians, And so the admirals and the generals in Japan surrendered. The emperor never surrendered.
Hmm.
I don't know if you know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. They
And
really.
he never gave up.
Hmm.
And so I was very happy that
Okay.
they did what they did. They did the right thing.
And
My opinion, Truman did.
hmm and going back a little bit to when the war first broke out, you're already in college, and
No, in December
well,
7th, I was still in high school.
hmm when you first got your draft card and you knew you were actually going into the army.
I never got a draft card because I was
Oh,
17 when I joined.
oh, so.
I never was drafted. I joined the Navy when I was 17 years old.
Hmm.
I went to college when I was just turned 17.
Wow.
And I enlisted in the Navy before I turned 18, which would have been in February. So I just went down and enlisted right in New York.
Hmm.
And then they sent me to the Great Lakes Naval Training for training. As I said, that was a boot camp for the Navy.
And so why did you sign up before you even got your draft card?
Because I didn't want to go in the Army. I'd rather been in
Oh.
the Navy.
Hmm. So it's a way of getting around that, definitely.
Yeah.
Smart. Um, how did you feel about joining the war effort in general? Did you support the war? Were you very patriotic?
I was very patriotic and supported the war. Most people were in those days. It was a lot different than it is today.
Hmm.
Today, a lot of people are ambivalent. I am too. I think that we shouldn't have gone into Iraq,
Right.
and I think we should get out. And I think Bush screwed up everything, frankly.
Right. Yeah. It's a big mess. How'd your family feel about you going into the war?
Well, they didn't have much to say about it.
Hmm.
They felt it was okay. They'd rather have me do that than join the army, be drafted into the army,
Right.
because they were fighting like the devil at that point in 1944. They were Battle of the Bulge, as you know, was in the beginning of 45,
Hmm.
and they were not anxious to have me go over. And although my father had been in World War I as a captain, um, they felt it was better to be in the Navy than it was to be fighting in Europe
Right.
at that point, when they were really fighting in Europe
Hmm.
very much, and as you know,
Yeah.
trying to go over and settle the war.
Okay. When you were in the Navy, did you go with any of your friends? Did you ever see anyone that you knew before the war started?
Yes, I did out in Great Lakes. I saw my friends from Dartmouth,
Hmm.
two of them,
And did you end up going?
and I saw, I saw one of my very good friends who had been a classmate of mine at Dartmouth.
Hmm. Okay. And the people you met in the Navy, did you ever stay in contact with them?
One fellow went to Williams. We sort of stayed in contact a little bit
Hmm. Okay.
when we were in college.
Right.
Not, I really didn't develop any close friends in the Navy.
Hmm. It's a tough time. So you were in Pearl Harbor, and
I was in Pearl Harbor.
how many years was that? How long after that? How long was the bombing of Pearl Harbor before you got there?
It was about 4.5 years. 4 years. It bombed Pearl Harbor in December 1941,
Hmm.
and I was there in July of 1945.
Hmm. And was there any could you see the after effects of that bombing when you got
Yeah,
there?
some of the sunken ships were out there,
And they just stayed there?
still there. I've been out. I was there a couple of years ago, 3 years ago. They're still there.
In the Philippines, did you ever interact with the natives in the
Yes,
Philippines?
I found the Philippine people very, very nice people. And I had a whole crew that worked for me installing batteries. I was in charge of the maintenance of these landing craft. And I had a whole crew of Filipinos that worked for me. I had met friends that were in the actually in the American Embassy, and I met many Filipinos, and they're very nice people.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Very, very friendly, accommodative, and nice people. And I did like the Filipinos very much.
Were there any challenges to what you were doing there while you were repairing that? What were the major challenges of what you were doing when you were in the Philippines?
Well, I don't remember many challenges that, I was just trying to do my job and try and get home, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have any real serious challenges. I went over to Corregidor on weekends. We got a boat, one of the landing craft that we were working on, and we'd go take trips. We went to Corregidor to see where MacArthur was during the war until he left. That was the last bastion of in the Philippines when they were overrun by the Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the generals and everybody went before they fled. That was in Manila Bay. It was very interesting. Then we went up to Lake Taal, and actually there were they were native rebels called Hokbolahops, and they were very dangerous. And they were trying to kill them, and you had to be very careful because they were killing Americans even after the war was over, because they were communists.
Mm-hmm.
And when we went up on these boats up to Lake Taal, which was behind Manila, we were always assigned guns, rifles and pistols, to protect ourselves in case these rebels came out of the bush. They would come out of the bush and attack Americans. When Americans would hitchhike from our base at Cavite, which was on Manila Bay, to Manila, they had to be very careful, and some were killed from time to time, the Navy people, by these rebel communist insurgents, which went on many, 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 many years after we left, even until recent times.
Right. Did you know anyone that was attacked by
No, I
these groups?
didn't.
No. Okay.
I knew an officer that was attacked, and he was survived, but I don't remember any. I knew a couple of the people from our base, and they had guns with them, and they scared off these rebels.
Mm-hmm. That's scary.
Hooks, they call them. Hook bullahuffs. That was the name for them. And they were attacking in the Philippines until almost recently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's one of those unheard stories.
What?
It's one of those lesser heard stories about the rebels. No one really hears about
right?
that. Mm-hmm. Did you ever have any experiences that were kind of like funny experiences that were kind of not really normal, but you ever mess around in the Navy?
Not really.
It was mostly work.
What?
It was all work, pretty much.
Well, as I said, I went in and
You went
I had
on vacation,
some
so.
friends that had friends of mine actually that I'd known before the war, who owned businesses in Manila, and they their relatives invited me in for dinner. Very pleasant experiences. So I had a very pleasant experience. I would say wasn't unpleasant. I wanted to get home and go back to college, but it was not. I didn't have any really unpleasant, and I was never attacked. As I said, when we went up on day trips up to the lake, we always were armed, and we did see them come out of the bush, and we held our arms against them, pointed our rifles at them, and they disappeared.
while you were in the Philippines, this is probably pretty far from home. Did you? The Philippines are pretty far from home for you. Did you
Sure
ever
were.
try to talk to your family or your friends
No.
at home?
I
No.
wrote them letters.
Uh huh. And I'm assuming you had to. You couldn't really tell them where you were. Is that true?
Yes, I told them where they knew where I was. They
Oh,
knew
okay.
I was in Cavite
Mhm. Because most
because the war was over.
Oh, okay. Okay. So when you returned home, you went back to college?
I went right back to college.
Mhm.
And I've had 3 years left because I had finished 1 year before I went in when I was 17. And I had 3 years left, and I graduated in 1949.
With a degree in, what did you major in?
Economics.
Economics. Okay.
And then I went right down to Wall Street.
Mm.
I went to Goldman Sachs and Company, and I was there for 20 years.
That's nice.
And then I became a partner in a firm that I had an interest in.
And then you moved up to.
I got married in 1954. My wife went to Wellesley, and she was working in New York, and we met. And I moved up to Pleasantville in 1957. As soon as my first child was born.
Mhm. And then you moved down here, of course.
And I lived there until 1987 when I moved here to Foxwood.
Okay.
And my I have one son that lives in Briarcliff, and he has 3 children. I have another son in Albany, and a daughter who went to Byram Hills, who now lives in Los Angeles. She works with the internet, and another son who works for Oracle in Portland, Oregon.
That's pretty cool. All right. Well, I guess that's it. Thank you very much for your time.
Well, thank you for coming.
Mhm.
I don't know if there's anything else you want me to tell you or anything.
Well, if you have any other little stories that you want to share, it's okay. If not, it's all right
Well,
too.
my experience in the service was, as I said, I think I would have been on the first invasion going into Japan in November when they were supposed to go in 1945, and I think that the fact that they dropped the atomic bombs, I thank Truman for that, because I'd have been right in the, I think there have been a tremendous amount of Americans killed if they hadn't have done that.
Right.
Between them and the Russians, and the Japanese were fearful that they would be annihilated, which they would have, and I think the atomic bomb convinced them of that, and the Russians.
Right.
So it was an interesting time, but I think I was lucky.
Mhm. Yeah, that's pretty convenient for you. It's nice.
But, my experience in the service was not bad. I don't find anything that was unpleasant, other than normally being in the service and restricted.
Right.
I went to, as I say, I went to radar school in Chicago, a high school there, I can't remember
Mhm.
South Chicago, and I had friends in Chicago and relatives, so being from St. Louis, I
Yeah.
found that it was not unpleasant.
Sounds like a relatively nice experience in the war for.
Well, it
Isn't
was
it?
for me,
Mhm.
it wasn't for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But I guess everything went right for me.
Yeah. It's good.
So anyway, that's about it.
Okay.
And I'm still working. I run my business out of my house.
Oh, really?
I'm still a broker with Raymond James, a big firm in Florida. And I still have some clients, so played tennis all morning, so down
That's
at the
nice.
Pleasantville Tennis Club,
Yeah.
I belong. So everything's pretty good.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm taking an econ course right now over
Are
the
you
summer.
going to be a senior?
I'm going to be a senior. Yep.
Where do
And
you want to go to college, Brad?
well, my top 3 schools right now are Northwestern, UPenn, and WashU in St. Louis, right by St. Louis. Washington University.
I know it very, very well.
Yeah.
Many of my friends from my school went there,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
and it's a very good school.
Mm-hmm. It's very nice.
And one of my classmates was the head of the school, chairman of the board for many, many years, Bill Danforth. He was for 20 years. He was
Sounds
head of
familiar.
Washington University. He
Wow.
was a doctor. He was a classmate of mine in high school.
Yeah.
Then he went to he went to Princeton and then Harvard Law School, Harvard Medical School. I mean, and then he became a doctor, head of Washington University's medical school. And then became chancellor of the university, and he was chancellor until about 2 or 3 years ago. And he was one of my classmates and good friends.
Huh. It's pretty cool.
So I know that school very, very well. Where else? UPenn?
UPenn. And Northwestern in Chicago.
Well, that's a great school too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I hope you go to one of those. You want to go to, all of them are good schools. That's great.
Yep. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
St. Louis is a very nice town.
Yeah.
I'm going out there on Labor Day. My daughter, one of my cousins is getting married and asked me to come out as a representative of our generation because I'm the only one that can go of that generation. All the cousins of her family, the father's generation are dead, except me and my sister who lives in California.
That's nice.
So I'm going out there in a month.
Just before I go, do you have any pictures of you in the Army, or I mean in the Navy? Do you have any, like...
Yeah, I do. I know where they are.
Just gonna stop this.